We're live.
Hello, I'm Matt Bergman, and you are listening to the Punk Rock Libertarians Podcast, episode 229. I'm here tonight with Jared Schneiderman.
Hey, guys.
Philip Dassing.
What's up?
And Kyle Wagner.
Hey, glad to be back.
Well, we're glad to have you, Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle, bro. So tonight, I'm seeing that topic number one is Portland. So, what happened in Portland? I kind of missed this shit, honestly.
Same.
Yeah.
It was just the same old Proud Boys and their type of group. They decided to once again march through the streets to face off against Antifa, and it's the same old predictable thing that happened. It wasn't as bad as projected. Donald Trump actually made a tweet about it. This is what made it kind of big. Donald Trump earlier in the week made a tweet, maybe it was like yesterday even, saying that he was watching the situation and he was deciding whether or not to label Antifa as a organization of terror.
Is that like something that he can just do on a whim, or isn't there like?
I feel like the FBI director probably has to.
The emperor can do whatever he wants.
Doesn't there like have to be a leader or something for them to do that, or isn't there like a weird
They
role?
don't have to.
I didn't know. Yeah.
I mean, they can label. That's that, and that was my point with this. I was like, Antifa is trash, but if you follow this down its road, they're going to label every dissident a terrorist.
Wouldn't this take valuable resources off of watching ICP fans? Juggalos.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's terrifying to think of, dude. Imagine just letting people like smash their heads into each other's heads.
Yeah, because I think last I heard that they are still actually classified as a terrorist organization.
Didn't the ACLU sue for them or something like that?
I don't know.
I think they did, which is hilarious, but good. Yeah, I mean, Antifa, labeling anybody a terrorist organization that isn't outright, blowing up the World Trade Center or blowing up buildings consistently, it just takes you down a dangerous road.
Or killing Palestinian children.
Yeah,
we're sure of that too.
I did a poll in my Facebook group. Should Antifa be declared a terrorist organization? Yes is winning with 133 votes. No is 73 votes, and Harambe has 80 votes.
I voted for Harambe.
Dude, you don't make open polls, you idiot.
I didn't make an open poll. I included Harambe and made it a closed poll.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, because I was trying to add like Kylie Wagner to that, and then I noticed I couldn't. So thanks, Kyle.
Kyle has his ear to the ground.
Yeah, so I think that Antifa is a vigilante organization. I don't think it's a terrorist organization. Their intent is not to cause terror. Their intent is to make life miserable for their enemies, the far right, the nationalists, the alt-right, whatever, the white supremacists. You know, it's a whole bunch of groups, actually.
Haven't they inflicted violence on people? It's like how do you define terror,
Not they have inflicted violence on people, but they target the far right. They're not targeting the public.
The far right don't count as people?
I mean, they do count as people, but I just think that
the fact that is more with the goal of basically causing terror amongst the public in order to advance political aims. You could stretch that to cover Antifa, technically speaking, but they're not just going into random McDonald's and lighting off smoke bombs and shit like that. They have broken Starbucks windows or what have you. So in that way it's sort of there, but really all of their violence has been, like you said, directed towards the far right or directed towards Trump supporters or people they deem to be their enemy or the enemy of progressivism or whatever. I'm not saying they're justified in any of that violence. I don't think they are. I think they're all acts of aggression. But the problem isn't necessarily are they terrorists, are they not terrorists. The problem is when the U.S. government labels people as terrorists. It's a dangerous road to go down.
Right. Yeah, that was my point.
Because they could easily name anybody that speaks out against the government as a terrorist. They could say voluntarists. I saw Ed Kimmick posted something. I didn't read it, but basically the language was sort of saying that anti-government people should be thought of as terrorists, which isn't fair. There are anti-government people who do
I don't think that
resort
was the
to
point.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think Ed would say that.
No. He was saying he was posting something like from the FBI that was saying.
Okay, yeah.
No,
yeah,
obviously
yeah.
he is, and he
He's one
said
of our best, man.
Well, yeah, you know,
yeah, no,
like
I'm not shitting on Ed.
It's pretty fucked up
shitting on
because it's pretty fucked up. I think because anti-government. I feel like a lot of times is really people that are just anti-violence.
Sometimes.
Well, I would say by definition it is, or at least anti-aggression, but.
Yeah,
not all of them. Not all of them.
I
sure,
mean, a lot of
like
anti-government people are very violent. I mean, look at Timothy McVeigh.
I was just about to say Timothy McVeigh.
Would you call him a terrorist?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, well, I mean, notice I said oftentimes. I didn't say in every single case.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I don't think it's fair to group in someone like myself or Bergman or Phil here with Timothy McVeigh just because we may agree that government is bad or certain aspects of the government are bad.
Whereas Kyle, on the other hand, is a violent statist.
That's correct. Yes.
But it's on one hand it's justified to call Timothy McVeigh a terrorist. On the other hand, calling whole groups of people that are a part of a sort of a nebulous organization wherein some do commit violence, some don't. Some of them are politically motivated, some of them are not. It sets a dangerous precedent to do that.
Well, Josh Smith made an interesting post about it. He was saying, like, it's disappointing that these people, Antifa, go after the far right, but they're not going after the police. And he's like, well, if you're trying to target fascism and you should be targeting the authorities, not, I guess, other activists or other, So, which I thought was kind of interesting. I didn't agree, like. I think that the police in this case are almost a neutral party trying to keep the peace.
I doubt not true.
Trying to enforce red flag gun laws.
Well, no, I mean when they have to handle, a far right gathering, they
aren't they actually on the side of the right wingers?
They beef up. They are. I don't know. It really kind of depends on the city, but on paper they're supposed to support freedom of assembly. Right? And on paper, they're supposed to maintain order and keep these two groups from fighting in the streets. So they're supposed to be sort of impartial in all of this.
Yeah, but that's not how it works. I mean, most of the time, like you notice, even here in Baltimore, they're told to stand down and they let shit happen. They let people get hurt because they don't feel like getting involved. And people, like, your cop supporters will be like, well, they just don't want to get hurt and they're going to get sued if they do anything, blah, blah, blah. But I think they did, I guess they handled it okay today.
I heard they escorted the Proud Boys out of the protest.
Well, look what they did in Charlottesville. They intentionally led the group of the people protesting. They led them into the group. They canceled the event night before it even got started, and they led everybody into the group of Antifa, where Antifa was. Like, they did that on purpose.
Okay, hey, check this out. Speaking of cops, and Baltimore cops for that matter. So I've got a friend. I don't want to say his name, but anyways, he had his bag stolen out of his car in Baltimore City, right? And then in there was like a tablet and a laptop and some other stuff. And he called the police and reported it, right? Mm-hmm. And then he finished with that. He hung up the phone and he was like, "Oh crap! I've actually got a tracker on my tablet." So then he looked on his phone and he was able to track his tablet to like an address in Baltimore City. And then he called the cops back up, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I actually have a tracker on my tablet. I know where it is. I can give you the address." And you know what the cops told him?
What?
Go over there and get it yourself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Go over there and get it yourself. So in other words, like, they didn't want to go. They didn't want to put themselves in a dangerous situation. But they'll pull you over. They'll pull you over to give you a fat ticket because your taillight's out. And how are you going to know your taillight's out?
Why'd you look at me when you said fat ticket?
I didn't look at you. I've got sunglasses on. You can't tell what I'm looking at.
You're looking in my direction, man. You didn't look at Kyle when he said fat.
All right, so can we go back to this, dude?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So at any rate, they said go do it yourself, And oh man, when I heard that, I just got like livid. At any rate, so my buddy's like a little connected, so he called a judge in Howard County, told him what was going on, and the judge was like, "Hold on, give me a few minutes." And then next thing you know is 15 minutes later, he's getting a call from like the chief of police is like at this house with the laptop in his possession.
Wow.
And it's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," But I mean, it
Holy
just goes to
shit,
show
man.
you. I think it came out a few years ago. I think a court ruled that it's not even an officer. Like, an officer doesn't even have a responsibility
there's no
to
duty to
protect you.
protect,
Even
yeah.
that was
that was in like the 90s or maybe even earlier.
what was the case with something versus DC where they yeah, like, do you guys even know the circumstance of that case where they ruled that, like, they
well, yeah,
just
somebody,
enforce the
yeah,
laws?
the police officer like basically witnessed someone getting raped.
No, it wasn't even that. Like, they was a group of house, like, these girls were in a house together, and the house got raided by like some guy. Like, he just came in and like the other girls were upstairs. They jumped off into like their roof, and they called the police, and the other girl got caught downstairs, and the guy was like raping her, and they were screaming to the police like, help us, and the police came and just knocked on the door while this girl was getting raped downstairs, and he did nothing. He was just like, he was just like, whatever, and just left. After the girls were on the phone with like 911 saying like, look, she's getting raped, and eventually the guy heard them on the roof, dragged them in, raped them, and they sued the city and they sued the police because the police never did anything except for knock on the door. And they were like, yeah, the police were in the right because it's not their job to protect you, it's their job to enforce the law.
Right.
And they didn't witness any law being broken. Something like that. Yeah. It was
a very strange story.
Yeah.
I mean,
check it out. I mean, if you got, I wish I remember what the case
I
name was.
posted it like after that it was after that one shooting, this Stoneman Douglas or whatever.
Yeah.
When the cop didn't like go inside, and I did a little research, and yeah, there was a Supreme Court case that basically they're not obligated. They're not obligated to protect you.
wasn't that the Parkland shooting that he didn't go in?
Or whatever, maybe the Parkland.
Well,
whatever.
those guys got
There's a lot
fired
of
because that was their job, was to go in and do that, and they eventually got
Was it the
fired.
security guard, the school resource officer?
Mhm. Yeah, they got fired.
But
for
a school
that.
resource officer is a police officer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean they got fired, but you can't bring you
Yeah, you're
can't
not
sue
gonna-
him.
Yeah, you're probably not going to.
I mean, maybe you can do a civil suit or something,
Maybe.
but yeah, there's no obligation. So
and of course
everybody should own a gun.
right.
Well, I think one of the reasons for that is because if they had an obligation, or if you could sue them, anytime anybody was the victim of a crime, they would turn around and sue the police and say, hey, you guys failed to protect me. I got mugged because you guys failed to protect me, right? So
Sure.
you can't have that loophole where the police can be held accountable for every private crime that occurs.
But I mean, if you had a private police force protecting you, or a private protection agency, you wouldn't even really call it policing. Then you could go after them if they failed to do their job.
But like in the case of just
Yeah, but it's not their fault. Like, they're not going to want to be sued for every time a crime is committed either. No one is going to be want to help.
Well, it's not any time a crime is committed. It's what are you in a circumstance wherein you can protect somebody, wherein you can provide that protection. I mean, yeah, imagine if you're running a security company now, even right now, I'm sure there's stipulations that say, we will do the best of our ability to defend whatever property.
Yeah, you can't.
But if we fail it to do it, then yeah, I'm sure that's written in there. But there's no recourse with state police if they fail to. They don't have to. They can do what they did to his friend until a judge gets involved.
Yeah, it's not about protection. It's about sustaining the system.
right. And I think with the case that I was just talking about, like the girls were stuck on the back roof. They couldn't get to the front part of the roof.
Yeah.
And they said that we're on the back. The police officer didn't go around the house and check. He was left. And they were like explicitly saying, we're stuck on the back of the roof. Like, we don't know what's going on downstairs. The girl's screaming. Like, there's some guy broke into the house. And he didn't even like check. And it's like it's not like a case where it's like a welfare check where it's just, I don't know what's going on, I'm just gonna go in there and check. They explicitly told the 911 dispatcher that something was happening in explicit parts of the house, and he didn't go in.
Well, I think the main takeaway though isn't should they be liable, should they not be liable, what should there be recourse, whatever. It doesn't matter. The fact is people have to be aware that the police aren't just this automatic shield around you that will just defend your life and property and family. You have to do that yourself.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you can call the police for help sometimes and hope that they don't come and, like, kill your dog. And you can call them after the fact to file a report and, make sure everything's on the books for your insurance company or whatever. But, like, in the moment, even if you call them, you can't count on them to defend you. So you have to be prepared to defend yourself if something happens,
Kyle, what if you call the police and they like strangled your gerbil?
I don't have a gerbil, but yeah,
how would they get?
I would be.
Would they have to reach into his ass to do that, or what? How does that work?
I try not to call them. I keep my expectations low, and fortunately, I'm not usually the victim of crime, so
right,
it's good.
Yeah, I don't get this.
How'd we get on that
Like
topic?
we're talking about
the
Portland.
police's
in
role
Portland.
in Antifa and Proud Boys.
But so of course today, I don't know if did you see any videos that came out? Did you see the violence that happened?
I did want to talk about it. Yeah. So shout out to Ford Fisher, who was like filming the whole thing.
Is he the guy from News to Share?
News to Share, yeah.
Okay.
Ford has like been involved in the LP. I met him at the LP National Convention. He was covering that, and he's like just an independent journalist who's trying to build his name and build his brand. And his big thing is going to these kind of clashes. He was in Charlottesville. He got some of like the firsthand footage of all the stuff that happened there, and he flies around the country going to these rallies to film stuff. And he actually got a shout out from Kathy Griffin on Twitter. She was like,
really?
Ford Fisher is like, she was like, hey, Twitter, can Ford get a blue check? I mean, the guy is always like right in the middle of the thick of it.
That's crazy.
So he got noticed by celebrity. So,
But then he
doesn't
get demonetized. Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
I was gonna ask, does he? So he just films all these interactions and protests.
Yeah.
And he got.
But why doesn't he
demonetized.
get? Yeah, why doesn't he get the same treatment as like that Andy No guy?
I don't know, but
Is he unbiased in his sort of filming of it?
I think he is unbiased, and I think both sides kind of interpret him as just covering it. Although, when I watch the footage of these things, there's more people with cameras filming than there are actually fighting. Like it's just like a fight attracts a crowd, and more people go to these things just looking to be in the middle of the drama.
I wanted to do that after I went to the Trump inauguration, and I got a whole bunch of cool shit on film.
Yeah,
I was kind of like, man, we should just go and just film this shit when it comes around here, but I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't want to get caught in the crossfire. I'm not trying to like end up like pepper sprayed.
Yeah, get a milkshake,
Get
a concrete milkshake in your face or whatever.
Like it's not really worth it for me.
Or like get hit with a pink Antifa dildo.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That might be cool, dude.
But yeah, so the violence did actually happen the day when the groups were dispersing and they were getting into their and their buses and stuff to leave. That's when, of course, Antifa moved into action. Of course, they didn't do anything when the cops were there. They moved into action as soon as people were getting into their buses. I give props to Proud Boys. A lot of these people, they showed up. They were in like buses with like cages around it, so you couldn't break the windows. But of course, they were able to. They started jumping people, and
I saw a lot of pushing and shoving.
Well, they actually, these two people were getting on the bus, and like Antifa swarmed them, started beating the crap out of them, and then they broke the bottom like of the door to the bus. And they broke the bottom glass out, and then they started like throwing hammers. Like they dude straight threw a hammer at a guy's head.
Wow.
And then I started spraying pepper spray into the bus as it was leaving, and it was smaller compared to the last time it happened, but it's like we were talking about before. You were like, Phil loves this stuff. But I'm like, I really don't.
But you really don't like Antifa. I feel like
I despise Antifa.
I feel like
this is
you're
the bully aspect of it.
yeah.
I hate it.
Do you also despise the Proud Boys or no?
I do. And if they were to swarm some random Antifa guy who was not doing anything but just protesting, yeah, I'd be like, that's repulsive and gross. It's just Antifa's always on the wrong side of this thing. I just hate the bullying
You see them
culture.
being the initiators.
Of course they are. I mean, they deliberately wait till the police are there and or gone. I'm sorry, when the police are gone, and then that's when they attack.
Yeah.
They don't like
but their platform is like no platform for fascists, right? So they think that it's okay to attack these people at any time.
Yeah, and there's even as a matter of fact, one of my friends on Facebook shared this post in favor of this teacher back in 2016. She she was like repeatedly punching this dude on camera in the face. They labeled him a neo-Nazi, but he was actually just like random like white nationalist group or something like that, and they called him a neo-Nazi. And the girl's on video. She's a school teacher, and she's like this little short Asian girl, and she's punching this dude in the face repeatedly. And she said that she wants everything acquitted because defending against Nazis should be legal or something like that.
It should be legal to punch Nazis.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Something like that.
It's like that's that mindset. It's like it's okay. They're saying mean
vigilante
things.
justice.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
weird.
I said.
Yeah, you're
know?
right. You know, it's kind of like in their mind, they think a crime has been perpetrated, a thought crime. These people hate. They have hate in their heart. So that means they are the enemy. And I don't care. The police are killing people, disproportionately black people left and right. But they are not expressing hate. Yeah, we'll call them fascists too. But our main focus is on Proud Boys. Our main focus is on MAGA people and Donald Trump and everything. Like it's like the priorities are out of whack. It's weird. And I don't agree like going and just like beating the crap out of a cop for no reason. But there's circumstances where there's a cop just like strangling a little small girl and a crowd full of guys are just standing there watching it happen. And like every single time I see a video like that, I post on it. I'm like, you guys know there's more of you than there are of them. And if there's a case where like there was some random beach video where this girl was like trying to like help her boyfriend who was getting tackled by this police officer because he was like drunk and disorderly, and like this is pretty much what his only crime was doing, was just being drunk, and like he wasn't doing anything but like stumbling around, and she was helping him like try to, and like he straight like punches her in the face and like tackles her, and like everyone's like watching this happen, and I'm like,
because they're afraid.
Yeah, but like there's more of you than there are of them, man.
Yeah,
and
but I mean, like, after the fact,
I don't know.
Then they're all gonna go down for police.
I know.
You know?
It's, and I'm not acting like a tough guy saying I would go beat up cops. Like I'm not gonna do that. But
Phil, sometimes you just gotta respect the costume, dude. You know,
it just pisses me off because it's like the thing. Same thing with Antifa. It's the bullying aspect. It's like dude, don't fuck with me. I'll fucking beat the shit out of you. Like you don't mess with me. You don't disrespect. Like you've seen those videos where the cops are like, oh, you like you said, fuck you, pig, and they think they can just beat you down and shit. It's that attitude of like this macho mentality, and Antifa shares total blame in this too. Like they act the same way when people just stand there. They'll just stand there with or they won't even do it. They won't even be a part of it. Like you see these cases where people are just wearing MAGA hats, and
I think that the nationalists invite some of it, Phil, because you're going into Portland. There's a strong far left contingent there. The nationalists go in with like wearing combat stuff. Like they're looking for a fight too. So they're not just all about free speech. They are baiting Antifa to some extent.
No. I will. No, man. Like I saw a video literally of yesterday. This random girl. She came up into the middle of the Proud Boys group. They're all converging. They started with that prayer. It was weird.
Yeah.
And then they were standing in the middle of the crowd. They were waiting to go on their march. And this girl just comes, and she just random. And she was like, I don't understand why you guys are fighting them. Like talking about Antifa, she's like, why don't you all like combine forces and fight against the government who's trying to bring us all down? The police are all, that's our enemy.
The government. They
and
like
they're like
the government.
And so of course the Proud Boys are kind of triggered by it because they're like, bitch, like who do you think you're talking? Like they start yelling, and a few of the guys in the group are like, no, she has every right to speak as much as we do. No, let her talk. If she wants to talk, let her talk. And that's what they were saying to her, this random girl. Do you think if she went over to Antifa and said that same thing, was like, hey guys, why don't you and the Proud Boys join together? They would have spit in her face, and they would have called her a Nazi, and they would have
drop kicked her.
Pretty much, yeah. So it's like, I understand there are elements of the Proud Boys who are just going to start shit and start fights.
Cuck Norris.
Yeah. She would have got spin kicked by a beta male.
Cuck Norris. So it's like, there's a difference. There is a difference between the Proud Boys. They are way more tolerant to free speech than Antifa is, and they act on it. It's not even so much like they shut you out. It's like they get violent, and it's like I don't agree with that. Like I'm just such a free speech absolutist, I guess, and it just triggers the fuck out of me seeing people getting so.
It's because you want to spread your Nazi propaganda.
I know, right? I'm dog whistling now, right?
Where's Nicholas Sarwark?
I know.
Shark Week.
Shark Week. Oh,
sorry, I just thought of this, but Kyle got featured on the Libertine.
Yeah, Libertine. Yeah, he finally got his
social media or whatever. Yeah, their whole thing is
what's the whole thing? They keep hammering on that that tariff thing.
Tariffs are taxes that Americans pay.
Because the Libertarian Party is going hard with that motto. That's why he's making fun of it.
They're mocking that motto. It's kind of confusing to figure out what their position really is on it. But I was explaining.
They're just libertarian trolls.
I think their position is simply humor.
It is, yeah. But I kind of took the agree side.
Did you see the Captain Planet meme?
I said that.
I don't think I did.
I did.
You
I
see
think I
that?
did.
It's just like the Captain Planet like putting their hands in, and it's just like that phrase just divided up amongst the people.
Okay, that's funny. But man, this goes back to Risa.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're going off a side tangent here, but
wow,
remember how we talked about last week how they attacked Risa, and you filled me in on all the details.
I
I
gave
had
you
no
the
clue
Risa
about.
backstory. Mhm.
Well, Pete Raymond, in his podcast, apparently had her on to discuss it.
Wow.
About the whole thing and what just about her story in general, and I'm not gonna say I felt bad about it. I kind of did a little felt bad because I didn't know the whole details. I didn't know. Remember we discussed it last week's podcast. You should go check it out. But yeah, it was funny like having her on, and I think she was like trashing the Mises Caucus too, and she was talking.
Wow.
And it was annoying.
Oh wow! But I mean, didn't she date Joshua Smith for a little while? So
yeah,
she must not have
but
like hated them that
ended
bad.
pretty bad.
So she's just bitter about that? Is that?
She claims some type of domestic violence against him, and the police report shows that he didn't. It was kind of like a mutual, like, I don't know. I don't really want to get into that here, but Josh he wasn't convicted of anything or wasn't even charged or wasn't even arrested for any of that. But it ended really bad.
They had an ugly
eventually
fight.
they patched it up. They're not going to be like asshole. I don't know. I don't really want to get into it, but it didn't end well. So we'll just say that. And she was on the podcast and she made some comment of like, I had this whole caucus attacking me, and I'm like, whatever.
Well,
but
it's
it's just
that's kind of her, man. Like,
Yeah.
if you know her, like, she has a flair for the dramatic. That's all.
Yeah, maybe I'll talk about this more on the after hours to the people who pay, because I don't really want to like throw it out there and just start.
Get into personal.
Yeah, because I got some stories. But anyway, going back to this whole thing with Antifa, it's every time it's almost like there's. It's like I don't even want to compare it. Like Antifa is almost like a bee's nest, and yeah, you're just standing there. Eventually, if one stings you, the whole rest of them's gonna. That whole pheromone gets released in the air, and then they all come and try to sting you. And there's a certain point, hey, maybe I shouldn't stand next to the bee's nest. But then then there's also this other part of your mind, like, well, these are human beings. You want to like say they're better than animals who have a mind, who can think on their own. And
where are you going with this, Phil?
I think there is some blame for the Proud Boys.
Are you going to talk about exterminating a group of people?
No, I'm not talking. I didn't mention
like
raid.
vermin?
Okay. No, this whole thing just pisses me off, and I hate watching people just fight and beat the shit each other for no fucking reason. And it shouldn't be that way. And I don't know. I prefer civil discourse. And
I don't. I have like a morbid curiosity with
You don't
it all.
prefer civil discourse?
No, I do, but I mean,
I was like,
I
wow.
see this stuff happen, and I mean, I shared the news to share live stream to my group, like, hey, shit's going down, so I kind of fed into it a little bit, and I'm entertained. I'm a little bit entertained by,
Well, did you watch
don't
UFC last night?
Well, the question.
No, I didn't.
How about this?
Okay,
Do you think anything that happens there has broader implications? I mean, clearly, if the president's tweeting about it, that's something,
Well,
right?
I was thinking about the history of political street violence, right? Like in the grand scheme of history, it's nothing new to have different political factions actually physically punching each other and kicking each other in the brown shirts. And just all throughout, you go out in New York, you've had conflicts. Like there's been physical conflicts over politics before. So it feels new to me because I don't really remember this happening lately.
Right.
Maybe you had some in like the Vietnam era. There were in the civil rights era. There was certainly, but that was mostly cops and protester kind of dynamic.
And even that was kind of peaceful.
This is not. Cops aren't one of the two parties really that are clashing, right? It's two political factions who have different ideologies. One of them mainly is anti-immigration. That's one of the main things they're fighting over, but and Donald Trump, like those are two of the biggest things they're fighting over. So
right,
but it's political street violence, and I guess like as a spectator on Facebook watching live streams of it, I'm like, it's entertaining, I guess.
It's almost like a car accident.
It is.
Like
yeah,
you have to just watch it.
exactly.
You have to see it. Like I have to see this. Like I have to know what happened. And that's I guess it may be a character flaw of me. One of the many.
Right. Well, okay. I want to switch a topic from top. We spent a while on this.
Half
It's
hour.
like we're halfway through the podcast.
Oh shit!
Now, I want to go down. I want to go down and
My
I want to
bad.
hit topics 3 and 4 in the same
I
swoop.
did.
Let's do it.
It's your anarchy basement.
You know, so we're talking about these polarized like right and left right now. You know specifically you've got Antifa on like the far left, and then you've got Proud Boys on the far right. But I mean, like even like even like just your regular right and left normies. From your MAGA hat people to your people who voted Hillary. It's things are like pretty fucking polarized. Now, right now, it's like I'm getting like extremely fed up with MAGA people, like especially since Donald Trump's did a couple things. For one, he suggested national red flag laws. So you're talking about gun confiscation without due process, and people are still saying #MAGA. It's like, fuck you, you fucking Nazi piece of shit. Like now I don't know. It's just like, dude, gun confiscation without due process. Can you wrap your head around that?
Dude, I'm still going back to my whole thing that Trump is going to end up basically a moderate Democrat by the end of it.
It's by the end of it, he was 15 years ago when he was like rubbing shoulders with the Clintons.
But you're going to look at his record, you're going to say, oh, I mean, except for the immigration thing and the wall thing, you're going to be like, oh, he.
But what wall? There's no wall.
Well, exactly. Okay, exactly. There will be no wall, and his immigration policy is not that much different than Obama's. So he's just going to basically be Obama, but with gun control,
like an orange Obama.
Yeah,
right.
But I mean, at least Obama didn't actually get any gun control stuff done.
Matt,
right.
I think Rand Paul made a post about possibly supporting a 48-hour. Like they'll take the guns, and then within 48 hours you get a hearing. But they take the guns first, right?
But
so that's without due process.
I'm not trying to.
Maybe you can reverse that and say, okay, we're gonna have a hearing and then take them.
Okay, I can see the allure to saying, well, at least you'll get them back in 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, let's not forget what this country is founded on. If you really want to make America great again, one of the things that makes a free country free in the first place is a little thing called due process. So, and then, due process already exists. It's existed for a really long time. And that's the way you got to go about doing things in a free country.
Yeah, and how about this scenario? You have a woman who is involved in a relationship, and she feels threatened by this person.
Oh, yeah. And then say that person calls the cops on her and says she's a little unhinged.
Right.
Gets the cops to take her guns, and then that person goes and attacks her when she realizes she has no way to defend herself.
Exactly.
It's something similar already happened. Des, she posted a story that was just like that, where this I forget the details of it, but I saw it for a split second right before I came in here, but it was something along the lines of like disgruntled lover. She called the cops on this dude for having guns, and they went and implemented one of the red flag laws on him and took his guns, and she threatened like oh, I'm just gonna get your guns or something. It was something along those lines, and it happened.
Yeah. So the other thing that's really pissing me off about Trump a lot right now. Is it's just the other day I think it was yesterday, I saw that he's suggesting that we reauthorize mass spying again, whereas I'm not so sure that it was ever really authorized. I think it was just brought to our attention that it was going on. For years when you said that the government was reading every email, every text message, they were recording this shit. Like, you were labeled as a conspiracy theorist. Then Snowden threw it out there, and then the same people that called you a conspiracy theorist were like, "So we already knew that," So they just skipped the conversation. Now, what Trump is saying, wants Congress to reauthorize it. First off, I don't believe for 1 second that a recording of your conversations and the keeping of your emails and all that shit. I don't believe for 1 second that has ever stopped.
I don't think it ever stopped.
Yeah. What this is doing is this is saying, yes, we're doing it. We're going to put it out there. So now when they use it, it's nobody can get on them because it's like, yeah, this is what's happening. What I mean?
Yeah.
So this really just like opens up the possibilities for government abuse.
Right, and it's government
on
nudging
civil
you
liberties, yeah,
by knowing like, okay, well, these people know it's in law, so therefore we'll try to nudge them into the right direction. So maybe they'll think it's like what Facebook's doing is how we all post stuff to deliberately know to get around the algorithms of getting flagged and getting banned. That's what government's trying to do. But in our personal life, when we're sending text messages and we're on the phone call, we're like, well, maybe I shouldn't say this because someone might be listening, and that's total fucking Soviet fucking Bolshevik bullshit.
Yeah, it's 1984 bullshit.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh, I'm gonna snitch on my neighbor if I, and like we talked about last week, the snitch culture.
Yeah.
Like,
So like I've got a friend who I like grew up with, and he's been just a vocal MAGA person, and then. I just sent him this article about, Trump talking about, starting the spying again, quote unquote, because it's not like it ever stopped. We know it never stopped.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, well, I don't agree with it, but I still support Trump.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a
It's
cult
just
of
like
personality.
what,
around the
exactly.
It's the cult of
no,
personality.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's like you've picked a sports team and you've decided that you're going to stick with them regardless, no matter what.
4D chess.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like the 4D like Craig posted this on our comments. He said his sons are very big gun advocates. This may be political strategy. Stop with the 4D chess bullshit. Like, it's not strategy. He's going whatever the way the wind blows and get off. I mean, he's a fucking salesman. Donald Trump is a salesman. I had a salesman. One of my family members is a salesman. He reminds me so much of Donald Trump. He just, the way he'd say stuff is goofy. He would, depending on who he was with, he would change his whole and complete attitude, and just the kind of like, that's just his.
What is his goal? Is his goal just to get reelected?
Yeah, like it's to make a mark and to be like, I did this, kind of like, I don't know, like social credit, for lack of a better word. Like, he wants the recognition of being like, oh yeah, I was able to get this done and do this, and I'm so successful, and it's like a boasting thing. And I don't see it as he has any type of, that's why I didn't vote for him. I didn't support him at all. He has no philosophy. He has no morals.
Yeah, and even if his sons are big gun advocates, I mean, they're not going to get red flags.
Okay, well, his son-in-law is also a huge Israel supporter too. Like, we should just ignore what he wants to, or should we only pay attention to something that fits your narrative? Like, well, his sons are good advocates, so maybe this is a strategy. Well, his son-in-law is a huge Israel supporter, and should we just ignore his strategy too? It's like, dude, he's just a fucking salesman. Like, stop with this 4D chess shit. He's not that smart. He's not that bright. He's just clever talking.
We talk about like Trump derangement syndrome, where people are just so crazy and rabid about Trump, and they just hate Trump and everything about him, no matter what it is.
Right.
There's an opposite of that, where people love Trump and they deify him, and they treat him like a savior of America, the father of the country,
God Emperor.
like God Emperor. Yeah, it's on
Right.
both sides. There's the people that just love him no matter what, and the people that hate him no matter what, and it doesn't really matter what he says. If you're in one of those two camps, he can say anything and you're still going to feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the nature of humans, is to sort of gravitate towards somebody, especially when they're foisted up as the leader of, the free world.
Yeah.
It's like having the tribe leader back in, the ancient times.
Oh, he's definitely got the head of state,
And, yeah.
the great leader kind of thing going on.
And I mean, look, people like libertarians have done it with Ron Paul, and while, I mean, Ron Paul's record is pretty impervious, I mean, there are a few things where you can say, like,
newsletters.
Well, not the newsletters. I'm just, there are, like, I thought his whole thing with, and this isn't like me trying to shit on Ron Paul, but there was that whole thing with his, trying to get ronpaul.com wrested away from the owners.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was a little sketchy, but it's just the dangers of hoisting anybody up as like, impervious and, perfect and, oh, well, they did it. Well, I'm sure they had a good reason, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the word to describe what you're talking about. Like hero worship or
it's hero worship or sycophantism.
Something.
And it's not to say that we shouldn't like somebody or we shouldn't say like Ron Paul's awesome. He is awesome. But let's not hold people up as gods or anything like that. And let's look at, well, what do they do? What are they doing? What are their actions? What are they doing right now?
Or judge them one thing at a time.
One thing
I agree with this. I don't agree with that.
Exactly.
Yeah, like a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, Ron Paul has 99% of what he's done in his life is amazing as far as liberty is concerned. But yeah, if he fucks up once, you call him out on it and you say, I don't agree with that, and then you move on.
Yeah.
So, people that aren't willing to do that with Trump, it's just, I mean, it's not good. It's
the opposite of Trump derangement syndrome, or it's a different version of Trump derangement syndrome. They're fans,
I mean,
and, maybe if they would, and maybe if enough of them would call him out on this shit, then maybe he might sing a different tune,
Yeah.
Like if his goal is to get reelected, he might respond and say, oh,
So
my base is upset.
Let's get back to red flag laws. Like, I got into a little bit of a debate about it in the Mises Caucus group because I was saying, like, you know, if somebody kind of presents it that they're a credible threat to shoot up a mall or a school or something like that, and they have intent to do that, I think you have to act. You have to move and arrest them, take their guns away. I mean, you got to really arrest them. Like, but if they've made a threat, you know what I mean? Like, if they've posted a manifesto or something online. You know, you want to try to intercept
this person in our comments is arguing that we don't know what's being proposed. The cops wouldn't take your guns first. You have to petition a court. He separated that last one with periods. Like, oh, so this guy must be one of those Twitter trolls. But so it's not. Yeah, we're not saying like the cops just decide on their own to come to your house and take your guns. Yeah, it's decided by a court, but it's based on flimsy evidence. I mean, like you said, we've already seen this where somebody reports that somebody's mentally unstable or has a history of XYZ, and somebody then follows up on that. Sure, they get it through a court system, but we know that you can't really trust the courts. I mean, the courts have done all sorts of harmful things.
You know, it's very possible that, you know, somebody could just like fucking, you know, just be like doxing you, you know,
sure,
and calling up. They don't like you. You know, they don't like all libertarians, so they just report you, Jared.
Someone
Schneiderman.
could literally do this while watching the podcast. Be like, these guys are talking about shooting up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, and it could also happen that, you know, you go before a liberal judge who doesn't believe that anybody should have the right to bear firearms.
Right.
To bear arms. And then, you know, he could, take your guns away. He wants to take everybody's guns away. You know, it just could happen that way. You know, it could also happen to where, like, you know, the judge could be afraid, well,
what if I don't take his guns away and then he does
the guy's
something?
crazy, and is the judge going to get sued? You know, this creates an extremely sticky situation for liberty.
But yes, if there's a legitimate threat being made where this guy goes online on Facebook and says, I'm planning on doing this, here's my manifesto.
3:30 p.m. on Wednesday, I'm going in.
Then fine. Like, I'm okay with somebody taking his guns.
Well, I mean, like, aren't there already laws in place?
Yes, there are already laws
anyway.
in place.
That goes back to what Rand Paul was saying. What Rand Paul was saying, what he was in favor for, was almost word for word what's laws that are already on the book.
On the books.
So it's like people are like, oh my god, can you believe Rand Paul? Like, nah. I mean, I'm not gonna try to like you said, like cuck for him or anything, but yeah, he's saying stuff that's already on the books. Like, it's not something crazy like Dan Crenshaw, like that fucking turncoat piece of shit. Like, we all knew what he would do. One-Eyed Willie. Like, we all know he would do this shit. Like, and he's all talking about we need to support, you know, red flag laws. Like, fuck off.
I'm glad Rand's back. I think he was out. He had surgery, right, on his punctured lung.
But he deserved that because he's against healthcare. He deserved that, right?
And speaking of injuries, it's a little off topic, but I heard Daryl Perry had brain trauma. Hit his head at work. This is a LP presidential candidate from 2016, staunch anarchist. I guess he hit his head at work and has severe brain damage. So hopefully he's okay. I don't know. I don't know the severity of it, but just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I saw your post.
Hope he gets well. Yeah, I don't have any ill will toward Daryl. I hope he's okay.
That's fucking crazy. But you know, we know there's a lot of people out there who, like the Donald Trump supporters. What's her name? Essie Cupp. You know, she was a big gun rights advocate, and
I think your food's here, Jared.
Yeah,
probably.
Oh yeah, go get your Grubhub, dude.
We hear the dog upstairs barking at the door. Jared ordered food.
I think Jared ordered some Lunchables.
What is it, Grubhub?
Well, let's not give them free plugs, man. They're not sponsoring this podcast. Fuck them.
Right. Speaking of sponsoring this podcast, we have a Patreon now, and then we have the After Hours program. If you want to gain access to the After Hours program, all you have to do is contribute a minimum of $1 per month to just like help to keep the lights on down here in Anarchy Basement. You know, this podcast costs a lot to run between like equipment and Phil breaking chairs.
I knew it was
so yeah, if you guys could help us out with that, like anything you could do, that's awesome. One thing you can do if you say you really can't afford to help us out, but you want to help us out, you could go on like iTunes and you could rate us. Go in there and give us a kind rating. That would be like totally amazing. That would really help our podcast.
And let's not forget, the Fantasy Football League, the Fantasy Sports Ball League is up and running, man. So if we have 6 spots left, we're halfway full. And so if you guys are interested, you sign up for Patreon or give the equivalent amount to PayPal, or if you guys want to send over PayPal because you don't like using a Patreon, so you could do that, and you could be a part of our Facebook, or our group's fantasy league. Kyle, are you at this point willing to join our fantasy league?
I'm on the fence about it. I usually have a one league rule, and I do a league with my friends. So I just find like the more leagues I do, I get confused with who I'm playing and who's got who. And I don't
It's
know.
2 leagues, man. I've been in 5 leagues at once.
I know
dude.
5 is insane. I wouldn't.
I know it was.
You're
pretty
rooting
insane.
against your own players at that point. You're forgetting to set lineups.
Come on, man, for the people.
I know.
For the people.
I know
There's
it's for the
people out there
people, but-
counting us to have. People want to beat you, man. They can't
Yeah.
do it. They can do it in fantasy football.
All right, I appreciate that argument. I mean, maybe I'll give you a maybe.
All right. We
When's
got a
the
maybe.
draft?
The draft is August 30th
Okay, coming up.
at
OMG,
8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Kyle, did you wear a T-shirt again?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
I wore
dude.
my Mises T-shirt
Fuck
again.
yeah.
So,
Oh, sweet.
yep. It's hot down here in Anarchy Basement.
Yeah.
The fan does not rotate to this side of the table. So, T-shirts for me.
Yeah,
That
man.
much
We
from Bully
sign up
Dogs.
for the
We're good.
Patreon so we can get more fans in the Anarchy Basement. It's like 95 degrees today in Baltimore. It's crazy. It's hot down here.
All right, what's the next topic?
The next topic. Okay, let's go. We've got a ton of shit for After Hours, too, by the way.
Right.
So, okay, I guess we're going to go back up, circle the wagons up to topic number 2, which
Topic
was
number 2.
Hong Kong.
So there's been a lot of protests in Hong Kong. I believe we've never touched on this subject. It's been going on since the end of June.
We have touched on it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned it.
Maybe not as in depth that I can remember, but my brain's half fried anyway. So, but apparently the people of Hong Kong are still protesting this extradition law that's been tabled but hasn't been fully discarded, and it's getting pretty bad. And like Chinese people are, the Chinese government is sending troops to the border of Hong Kong, and it seems like they're preparing like a Tiananmen Square type shutdown.
Yeah,
in the next few weeks.
It's a weird situation because Hong Kong is technically part of China, but it's like an autonomous, self-governing
Right, yeah.
region. So it would be like if Florida was sort of part of the United States, but mostly left to its own devices. And I think actually Miami, they say, is like,
Little Havana.
Yeah, it's sort of like another country a little bit,
Yeah.
It's part of the United States on paper, but, in practice, not really. So it's very similar, I guess. And I saw a few interesting things. I saw one thing was the police were shooting tear gas canisters at the protesters. And they're very smart protesters. They were taking traffic cones. They put it over the tear gas container and pour a bottle of water into the top of the traffic cone.
Right.
And it extinguishes the tear gas so it doesn't spread.
If you ask Stefan Molyneux, it's because their IQs are much higher than other protesters
yeah, I'm sure.
in America.
Yeah. Other things.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's his big thing is race and IQ.
Other thing I saw was they were like waving the U.S. flag.
Ah, yeah. So this brings me
and chanting. I think were they saying USA or whatever?
Yeah. So they were okay. So this kind of brings in another aspect that's going on of how America likes to foment discourse throughout the world.
Discord.
Discord. Did I say discourse? Yeah, I'm
Discourse
fucking
is
stupid.
talking. Discord
I know.
is like
Discord. Yeah.
fighting.
I'm stupid. Anyway, so apparently, though, the Chinese government's fucking pissed because they have video of a American diplomat, and I don't know their name, but it was. I remember they were talking about it, and they were there meeting with a bunch of the student activists, and for some reason, after this law has already been. It's been tabled. The protests are still going strong, and to the Chinese government saying that the United States is behind the protest, and the CIA has their way with it, they're making this protest more and more and more, like just upping the ante because they really want to push. They want to use the Hong Kong people as kind of like what I'm looking for, like a pawn. Yeah, there you go, like a pawn in this whole type of protest. And they use them as pawns so they can then declare something with China because, everyone, the State Department, China's the enemy. China.
Yeah, we need a reason to go to war with China.
Right.
I mean, maybe.
Not war, but, more sanctions, more,
Yeah.
they want to make China look like the bad guy.
Keep Eurasia, as the bad guy, the
Right.
1984 term.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think the U.S. is responsible. Maybe they have some influence.
Where do
but
they get all those American flags from? All right.
ultimately, the protesters
Probably
themselves
from China,
are,
dude. That's where
are
we get
from
our
Hong
American
Kong, right?
flags
They're
from.
Hong Kongians. So, they're making that choice to protest.
Oh, that was funny. Funny and true.
Yeah.
But no. So I think there is an element like I can never try. Like I just want America just to stay the fuck out of it. Just like with Venezuela, with everything, stay the fuck out of it. Let the things happen as they may. I mean, you can't sit there and be like, well, we need
But
to
you
go
also have to give people their own agency. Like, you can't just say, like...
Right. I agree.
Well, no, but I'm saying, like, even if the CIA is interfering in some manner, I mean, we're not just, like, robots where, like, the CIA can just program us all to do shit.
I don't know, man. MK Ultras.
I think in politics,
I think...
Well,
Well,
I know.
ahead.
I'm just joking. I agree.
mean, it may be...
It's
there may be-
legitimate. It's a legitimate protest.
Yeah.
But I feel like America's kind of always they're always around stoking the flames, man. They're just in there just trying to make it worse. And I just, for once, I would just... Why was that diplomat there? Why are you giving the Chinese people reason to doubt the narrative that, hey, maybe your awful authoritarian fascist whatever communist government whatever is so bad
Maybe they don't...
they're repealing it.
Dude,
instead.
maybe... How about this shit? Maybe...
Oh shit.
Maybe they're doing that on purpose. Maybe they know that the Chinese government is going to see that. And then discredit the Hong Kongians so that... we won't have other uprisings like that throughout the world where
Maybe,
people
dude.
want to break away from their nationalistic...
That's some serious. And do you have the docs?
So what are we saying? Are we saying the Chinese
saying,
government has created a false flag?
No.
Gave them.
I'm saying the CIA. I'm saying the U.S. government maybe. U.S. government maybe is in Hong Kong and is allowing themselves to be seen like fomenting discord.
Discord or sure not discourse.
Yes.
And then
Alright.
and then fomenting discord
Give me a
and
dictionary.
and creating but then also by doing that getting caught doing it and then discrediting the actual movement.
That could be. That could be. Or what I was going to say
Or
was
just
the
everyone's an
Chinese
idiot.
government handed out the American flags
yeah.
to discredit the Hong Kong protest and make it
Alright.
seem like they're Americans siding with Americans or backed by Americans and that they're anti.
Yeah, how do we know that the people waving
anti-Chinese.
these flags were even Hong Kongians?
I don't know.
Right.
We
Not
don't
just
know.
Chinese.
We don't know.
We don't know, dude.
They could be
We don't
Japanese.
know.
They could
Up
be
to their
Japanese.
old
Yeah.
their old tricks.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
Do you think all Japanese and Hong Kongians look alike?
Them squinty-eyed Japs.
I do not know.
Something.
Wow, dude.
Just saying. It could be.
No, it's I support Hong Kong because what they think is this law extradition law that was put forth was like if you commit some type of crime in China that you could be prosecuted and sent back to China
Yeah.
from Hong Kong, because like Hong Kong's like this weird state. I mean,
Well, that's what I was saying, and I think that's
it's
really
very weird.
I think that's what the source of the problem is there's no clear political jurisdiction really drawn. It's like you're part of this country, but you want to be independent, and so that's where I think it helps to have a clear distinction of what country are we? Are we independent Hong Kong, or are we part of China? Because if we're part of China, then there's no qualms about, if you get in trouble with China, you go to China for trial or whatever. It's like all the same country. But when you kind of think you're an independent country, but you're really not, it creates like this conflict of China treats it like part of their country and Hong Kong treats it like they're independent, and you get this clash.
Those cops aren't treating. They're fucking being brutal on these protesters.
Yeah, I saw some like electric, what do they call it? The shockers, where they
Yeah,
shock people.
And they were also using the protesters were using lasers. They were using police tactics against the police. They were using like shining lasers in the police eye, like
It's like the laser pointer.
No, not laser pointer. But like these tactical, less than lethal weapons that were designed by militaries to like they pulsate this laser in your eye, and it's supposed to disorient you, and you can't really see anything, and you have to kind of like withdraw from the area, and they're using that
melt
against
your
the cops.
eyeballs.
No.
I was like, we have lasers now.
It's a less than lethal thing I've seen like cops have been implementing around the world, and they've been using it against the cops, which I think is hilarious. But they're ruthless. The police have been really ruthless in shutting down these protests. And
the Chinese don't play, man.
And these are Hong Kong police.
They don't play either.
But the Chinese, though, they've been massing like a lot of their forces and government vehicles right around the border of Hong Kong.
You were saying that, the tanks. They need that guy with the briefcase.
Right, yeah.
Like,
no. Tiananmen Square guy. They need him. But
that guy got disappeared a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, he ended up some type of camp.
R.I.P.
It's right. It fucking sucks. But I hope that the people of Hong Kong know that, like, I wish the Americans would give their moral support, but not. I hope they're not giving financial support, and I hope they're not getting involved or something that a few years later down a secret CIA document's gonna get released and be like, oh yeah, we were actually funding this whole entire thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just hope not. And I don't put it past. Do you guys put it past the government to do something like that?
No, I don't put it past them, but I do think this is actually just a conflict between the Hong Kong people and the Chinese people.
I don't think it started that way.
By America.
I think it started that way, but I think like now they're going into like several months of protests. It's like
it still doesn't mean we're behind it all.
I don't think we're behind it all. I think there's a portion of us that we're kind of like, oh yeah, let's keep it going.
Maybe not.
Let's
though.
a little part, and we'll see what we can do. Try to make China the big bad enemy.
Yeah. Selling discourse.
Yep, gotta sell that discourse, man. And it's even, God, I'm so stupid.
All right, Epstein, man. let's get one more topic in before the end of the show. What was the update on Epstein this week?
I don't know. Did you guys see that some of the reports were coming out from the autopsy that he had broken bones in his neck?
Now, like, was it true that the same person that did the autopsy was the same person that did JFK and MLK?
He oversaw it. Yeah.
Okay, so those are like, two like dare I say extremely fucking questionable deaths.
Right.
And you've got the same dude overseeing it. Coincidence?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Yeah, how's that even possible?
Because MLK was like in the 60s.
So was JFK.
Dude, he's in his late 80s.
Okay, they're both in the.
He's in his late 80s. The guy.
So they were like, we need to get that guy again.
Yeah. Right.
Where's our boy?
Yeah.
Our rubber stamp man.
Would they just like jack him up from the old folks home?
MLK died in Montgomery, Alabama, right?
Yeah.
And JFK died in Texas. And where did Epstein die? In New York?
Manhattan.
So
where's this
it's like the one federal death investigator that does all.
But to be honest with you, I don't know if it was.
MLK wasn't even in the government position. He was just.
But I'm thinking Epstein. I think Epstein's estate or whatever attorney wanted him to oversee it, and I don't know if he was allowed to or not. Someone posted something that contradicted this whole story, but I heard it was true. And I
heard it was true.
I read on the internet.
But I also it was verified in a news article from one of the corporate
from Breitbart.
No, from the corporate one of the corporate media. Like they actually did confirm it. But I think it might have been Timothy in our group. He said like no. He kind of gave me some pause on it. But either way, it's crazy to think that if he was partially strangled, like if they think this is more of a strangulation.
Well, they said there was a bone in his neck that in some cases is consistent with strangulation. However, if you are older, which he is older, that bone weakens and could be broken by a noose of some type.
Did he have finger marks on his neck? Well, they could have killed him with a rope.
Well,
they could have put a rope around.
Yeah,
his neck,
they could use the same whatever they found him, like a necktie or whatever.
Okay, well, didn't they also just take him off of Suicide Watch the day before, which is kind of weird?
He was on it for, I think it was 11 days after he attempted to commit suicide, he died. And I think he was only on it for 6 days under Suicide Watch, and then I think 5 days later he died.
Now, weren't there also some suspicious circumstances where 2 guards fell asleep? I heard.
Yeah.
And then the camera supposedly malfunctioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like there's just too much stuff all over this where there's no way that all this stuff could happen amongst somebody who I would think you'd really want to keep them alive if you want to catch pedophiles, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the guy was known to be bringing in all these rich and powerful people to his private islands where they did unspeakable things with underage girls. So a lot of people probably had incentive to shut this guy up.
Right, yeah.
And one of them probably got to him. Whether it was
Yeah,
Trump
that's
or
what's
Hillary
probable.
or some other billionaire or someone else, we don't know, and now we may never know. And what are you going to do? I mean, they got him.
I guess there's really nothing you can do. You can hope they find something somewhere. I mean, they raided, the FBI supposedly raided his estate and found like a picture of Bill Clinton, like a painting of Bill Clinton wearing the blue dress.
Yeah, I heard
Monica
about that.
Lewinsky.
Maybe that was the whole.
But while that's hilarious, it's not really going to bring anybody down.
Yeah, and the Clintons are, done. Like, they're both retired from politics.
We can only hope.
So
dude.
we can only hope. But I mean, they're old, and I don't know, like, why? Maybe they want to protect their legacy. I could see that. Like, if there's some dirt on Bill, they don't want that coming out. That he,
Well, yeah, you don't want to go down like Cosby.
Girls. Yeah, you don't want a Cosby situation. So who knows? Somebody very well may have had the guy whacked, but I don't know what we can do about it at this point.
Yeah. That's what it's looking like. So yeah, it looks like we're about to call it a podcast here.
Oh yeah.
I'd like to point out that Phil actually just went upstairs. He peed right before the podcast, and now he has to drain his boy pussy again. It's so soon. He can't go an hour without peeing.
Oh, he's drinking.
He also had like 4 beers.
4 beers. That's what it was.
No, I just like giving him a hard time. We have T-shirts over at libertariancountry.com. So if you want to, rock one of our T-shirts, you can go to libertariancountry.com, and then if you type in the code,
this one here.
Yeah, they've got a lot of like dank ass T-shirts. So the one that Jared's wearing says "Truth is treason" and the Empire of Lies, and has Ron Paul in it. Yeah. If you type in the code PRL or the code PRL podcast, you'll receive a 10% discount. Until next time, live free
or die.